If you want to do something, you're going to do it. If you think you want to do something, you're probably not going to do it. It really comes down to intention. So if you really want to have home ownership and you really want the power of what it's like to own real estate, you'll be able to make it happen. It's just a matter of patience and sticking to the plan.
Welcome to another episode of the Canadian Dream Podcast. Today I have a special guest from Toronto, from the Greater Toronto Area, also known as the GTA. He was born in Canada, but his family came from Portugal and Italy many years ago. And this guy here is basically the Canadian Dream. I have the pleasure to introduce you to David.
Thank you so much for the introduction, man. Doing great. Super excited to be here.
Man, you are the Canadian Dream.
Oh, that's super humbling to hear, man.
You're 27.
Yep.
You have 2 kids, a gorgeous wife.
Very gorgeous wife, yeah.
And a career in your real estate.
Yep.
You have been making, can I say it here?
Go for it, man.
7 figures.
Yeah.
For how many years now?
This will be the 3rd year in a row. Prior to that, it was a very comfortable 6 figures.
You have come a very long way since your grandparents' generation who came here from Europe. Did they struggle a lot?
Yeah, as we were mentioning earlier, they did struggle a lot, right? They essentially came from Portugal on the Azores on an island called Flores, which is pretty much flowers, right? Your background is in Brazil. And they came over here with essentially nothing, with the dream of, we're going to provide a better life for our family's generation. And my grandmother and grandfather came over here and gave my mom and my aunt a great life. And they leveraged that to give myself, my brother, my cousins an even better life. And we definitely did not take that for granted. And as you said, I've been working my tail off. In a short amount of time, I was able to accomplish quite a bit. And I always just keep thinking, imagine if they just let the hard times beat them and didn't try to find a better life. I would have never made it here.
What values did you learn from your parents at home growing up?
Yeah, I would definitely say hard work. No isn't always no. You just have to learn how to ask the right questions to figure it out to get a yes. If you can think about it and you really want to make it happen, you can do it. So don't put limiting beliefs on yourself. And at the end of the day, education and all this stuff is great, but surrounding yourself with the people in a very specific environment for where you want to go is actually greater. And I took all those principles to heart, and it's been good.
It's been working.
I'd say so, man. It's been working, yeah.
I want to know the secrets, why you are so successful in your real estate.
Yep.
But also, I think housing is such a big topic for anybody who's considering coming to Canada and who just arrived in Canada, but also for people who grew up here. Is Canada one of the most unaffordable places in the world?
I would say Canada is one of the most unaffordable places in the world for sure. I'd say yes to that answer. I'm sure there's also a lot of places, like I think New York off the top of my head and a couple of other really dense areas. I think primarily it's getting into the market that is a big struggle. Rents are so high, so therefore people's income isn't large enough to not only pay the astronomical rent, but to save enough money, and rather save enough money to outpace the rate in which the market is increasing, and then taking those dollars to actually get a foothold into the marketplace. And I truthfully feel a lot of people just get discouraged and they'll go to either different provinces, right? Because not all of Canada is super unaffordable. In my area, like Greater Toronto Area and all that spots, it is quite unaffordable for most. But I think a lot of people are looking to other options, other provinces, perhaps even other countries, depending, and trying to get stability in job that balances income and then quality of life. So I definitely say it's a really big challenge right now, for sure.
Let's talk about that in just a bit. First, how did you get started in real estate? And were there any challenges, or was it always a smooth ride for you?
I mean, I'm sure people could look at it now and say, oh, look at that, it must be nice. And it seems like it's a bit of a, he's lucky, or it seems like a smooth ride. But in all actuality, nothing is easy. And if you go in with the mindset that it's easy, you're actually going to screw yourself over. You need to go into it knowing, I'm going to work as hard as I can. Goals, I get them, but I'm not going to limit that to be, this is my goal. Because if I would have done that, I wouldn't get to where I was today, because I didn't stop thinking how big I can get, because I just decided to work really hard.
So how did you get where you are today?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing was, even getting into real estate, I just thought about what my skills were. And my skills are, I'm a people person. I love serving and helping others. I have a really good understanding of conversation and connectivity. And when I looked at all the careers that would pursue that, real estate seemed to be the most viable one that I actually generally can work countless hours without looking at the clock. And when I first got my first investment property and I learned about the structure of how real estate actually works, working alongside of that agent at that time, I remember thinking, man, not only can I do this, I can excel really well at this. And I just went pedal to the metal. My first year in the business, I was rookie of the year of my entire brokerage. I had sold 26 houses, and now we're selling between 60 to 75 houses per year. And that was, 6 years ago. So it was a pretty quick increase, but I also really pride myself in, again, not just the work ethic, but finding the right people to guide me to do the right work and not just do work, right? So I did my best to get network, and I leveraged that, and I just put my head down and kept working.
Did you have anybody in your family who was in real estate?
No.
Or did you have any mentors?
Yes.
Early on?
Yeah, for sure. So the first brokerage I was at had a tremendous mentor, and I was actually seeking one. Actually, technically my second. I was at one brokerage for 4.5 weeks, and I was like, yep, my person's not here. So I moved very quickly, and then I found another brokerage, and I did find my person, and they were tremendous in helping me get to where I went. And I actually found another, we can call it like a friend mentor in the very similar role that was a lot further ahead than I was, that I also worked alongside of them to kind of just get a better understanding of what it was. And for sure, I think that's one of the most important things, is surrounding yourself not just with people who are doing what you want to do, but are willing to share how it is that they're actually doing it, so you can take that blueprint and accelerate your growth, because their blueprint probably took them, let's call it 5 to 10 years. I was able to implement it in less than 2 because I actually had the framework, right? So it saves a lot of time when you have those right people in your life, for sure.
What is the life of a realtor like? What do you do on a weekly basis?
Yeah, wow. I would say weekly basis is wild to think. I would say more on a daily basis, because there is a lot of rapid change and there's a lot of things that kind of come up. I would say we have what I would like to call non-negotiables. There's things that we need to do that we can't lose sight of, right? So a lot of realtors mistake movement for achievement. They think they're doing the right things, but they're not having good cadence or consistency, and they're not getting the results. So for me, my number one thing is taking care of my people, period. Whether it's a current client, whether it's a past client, or someone that's likely to be a client, I'm servicing them, understanding what it is that I can be providing for them at that time, and I'm delivering. The next thing is I'm always seeking to try to find new people that I can work in service with, right? And then another thing is we're selling the product that we have, any listings that we have, or buyers that we're helping get into the marketplace. And then those are like the key things, to be quite honest with you, right? Going on appointments, generating new leads, negotiating contracts, and doing what I do. And then the balance of it now, what I'm really seeking to do is build a really great team of leverage, to not just to support myself, but support my clients at a higher level, and be able to support any agents that we want to have join our organization. And those are the key things that my day looks like, my week looks like. And obviously, I would say in a very simple way, it's putting out a lot of fires quickly. Very quick decision-making process when problems come up. I don't have the luxury of a problem coming up and thinking about it for a day or 2 days or even a week. I got to deal with it right away. I got to be able to jump on top of it. So that just comes sporadically throughout the day, and not all problems have the same pressing priority. It's getting them, understanding them, delegating them, and dealing with them as quickly as possible. And that's pretty much my day.
Great. Let's dive into the unaffordability thing, because that's what many people want to talk about. How has the market changed or evolved in the GTA or in Ontario in general?
Yeah, I would say
in the past 10 years.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing that we've seen is population growth. And then the thing that we haven't seen grow nearly as much is new products being built, whether it be condos, townhouse, detached homes, or anything, let alone affordable housing in any stretch. So when you have too many people coming here and we have so little product, it's basic supply and demand. We have far too much demand, too little supply. So by default, the prices of everything are going up, and it's been pretty consistent. COVID came through, and obviously it was such an unprecedented time, and there was a huge overprinting of money going into the economy, which falsely stimulated it, which made everybody feel super cash rich and started leveraging themselves to acquire cars, assets, you name it. And now that we've gone through the market shift with the rates increasing, it's knocked a lot of those players out. But still, the big issue, and I get this is one, but the really big issue is we don't have enough homes for these people, period. And the rapid rate of immigration that's still coming into Ontario, and I know a lot of other provinces in Canada, it's becoming a little overwhelming to see, hey, these prices, sure, again, we're going through a little bit of a dip right now, but they're going to go back right to their regular scheduled program of consistently compounding and increasing, yet again, becoming unaffordable for a lot of people. So it's a really subjective question, but there are a lot of things that you can do to get into the market right now.
What's the average price nowadays?
Yeah, I would say, so if you're doing like a condo, I would say 1 or 2 bedroom condo, depending where in the GTA, I would say 600,000 would probably be a good median price. And I would say a freehold townhouse, you're probably, I'm going to call it 800,000 as a good medium. A semi-detached home, I'd probably say about $1 million-ish. And then a detached home, I would say conservatively 1.2 million median price across the GTA to 1.3.
In many other countries, people have a different idea of houses
Correct.
and homes. Can you just explain what a condo is?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what a townhouse is, a semi-detached?
Sure. So a condominium is really just like essentially like an apartment. I know it's a synonymous term, and it's a you have ownership within it, but the condo is run as a corporation, right? So
And you have to pay the strata fees every
you have to pay maintenance fees every month to maintain the building as whole, in common with all your other unit owners. It's a good home ownership in Canada, but it's not the best. The best home ownership in Canada is freehold, right? When you own the land that you're on, you pay your property taxes, and that is your property. That's the highest and most sought value because there are no maintenance fees, and that is your property. And it's also essentially more affordable for some because they can continually make their mortgage payment plus the maintenance fees, and if they're subject to increase. And then a townhouse and semi-detached. Townhouse is going to be a row of homes, kind of all connected. So there's no, you don't really have, I always try to tell people, you open the doors, you're not having any windows on the side. You have maybe windows on the front and maybe windows at the back, but all your walls are pretty much shared for the most part. And then a semi-detached essentially is like a detached home split in half. So you do have windows on one side, but you don't have windows on the other side. And then a detached home is, a detached house. You just own the whole thing on one parcel of land.
And how has the price changed in the past, say, 10 years?
I would say the past 10 years, it's fair to say things on average increased between 40 to 50%, which is a pretty alarming rate. But again, that goes back to supply and demand. We don't have enough inventory to offset demand, and demand is continually to compound at an alarming rate. What do you think is going to happen? You have more dollars chasing fewer goods. Period. That is inflation at its finest.
And one might think that this is a problem that makes things much worse for immigrants.
Sure.
But it's not only immigrants.
No, not at all.
How does that affect people who are actually born and raised in Canada as well?
It's affecting everybody, right? If you don't have any money that you're inheriting through family and you don't have a really good paying job, the thing that you need more than anybody is discipline. You need to really set out that goal to say, I'm just going to be getting myself into the market. So my very first property was an investment property. And where I live, I bought it nearly 2 hours away from where I was, just because rather than having cash, I just wanted to have it into the market, right? I didn't even live in that home, but I just knew as quickly as possible that I can acquire home ownership. I can leverage it later to take the equity and financing and acquire maybe another investment property of the home that I would eventually raise my family in one day, right? So you just have to have the discipline, get your foothold in the market anywhere essentially that you can. And renting's not a bad thing. I try to tell people this all the time. If you have to rent, that's fine. But if you're just renting and you don't have any income of any source that's coming maybe through a really good investment portfolio or any real estate holdings at all, it's very hard when you do want to do one of those two options because you don't have as much capital to work with. So I always try to say when those dollars are in, try to get something that's at least matching the market inflation or beating it by a little bit. I think this year wasn't a normal inflationary thing, but I think anywhere on average 6% is probably what you're going to want to try to break per annum. And that would be, again, for those who don't have a really good income, just get into the market somewhere.
And with your experience of 6 years working as a realtor, what do you think is the main challenge that people face when they're buying their first property? Is it saving the money for the down payment, $100,000, $200,000? Is it qualifying for a mortgage, especially now that the interest rates are so high? Or is it making the monthly payments of the mortgage?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and it's pretty subjective depending on who's asking it, but I'm just going to do the avatar as someone trying to buy their first home, right? So if you're trying to buy your first home, getting into the market financially isn't always the hardest thing, primarily because if it's underneath $1 million, you can get away with putting 5% down. And that's pretty affordable for them. I'm going to say the average audience to save enough money within, let's call it a 12-month span, or, you stay at your parents' house, you stay with friends, family, have really low rents and try to just stockpile money to the side, even if you have a pretty low income, right? The next piece is the qualifying. That is hands down the hardest thing for a lot of people, especially if they're coming in with student debt, car debt, credit card, consumer debt, whatever the case might be. It's very hard to secure financing when rates are so high. It's not just the rates, it's the qualifying rate that's even greater than the actual interest rate onto the mortgage. That's a bit of a challenge for some. And then coupling that with, even if they can qualify, they realize, oh my goodness, look how expensive these payments are going to be. I'm almost better off just renting because now I'm not house poor. So I think those are the challenges together. I would definitely say it's coming from the qualifications and then what my life's going to look like. I don't really think it's necessarily the savings perspective. Those are the two things I would say are the biggest challenge for people.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the number 2 challenge, which is qualifying for a mortgage.
Yep.
In many countries, especially in the third world countries, you buy homes with cash. You either have the money to buy the whole thing or you don't, because financing is so risky and the interest rates are so much higher than in Canada, for example. So this is actually something that I only realized in Canada. I can buy a place with only 20% of it, 25% of it, or you're saying 5%?
As little as 5% under $1 million.
How is that even possible?
Right.
But then qualifying is another thing that people will not imagine what it's like in Canada if they haven't been to Canada before. Can you explain that process? How does a person walk into a bank and get a loan to buy a house, and what do they have to do in order to qualify?
Yeah, so I would say the number one thing is you want to get connected with a real estate agent. That's your first thing. And the reason I say that is a good quality real estate agent has either a mortgage broker or a bank or some level of a lender that they can suit you based on your situation. And they're kind of the concierge connecting you with that right lender that fits your needs. And essentially what you need is you need to have income to some degree. You need to have proof that your income is going to be consistent. And you need to be mindful of your debts. So what the bank looks at is saying, hey, let's say you make $100,000 a year. Of your total $100,000, they have a rubric saying we won't let you be in debt more than, let's call it 32% directly towards your mortgage. Therefore, you can't have more than $32,000 a year for your mortgage, and then divide that by 12. And that's going to say this bank will give you this much money to buy a home of $500,000, $400,000, whatever the number might be. Now, there's other debts that are taken into consideration. So if you have student debt, credit card debt, or if you bought a car and have a huge lease payment, it's going to directly deteriorate how much the bank can lend you. So I would say to everyone, what the process looks like is try to have your income to be as solid as you can get it based on where you are. Try to be mindful of all the debt load that you're taking on. And when you get qualified, your goal to get the home is to have as little debt as possible. Take your mortgage debt, because here's the inverted. If you have a mortgage and you want to go get a car, they're a lot likely to still give you that car debt on top of your mortgage, but the banks are far stricter than any secondary lender on a car or even credit card debt or whatever the case might be from that perspective. So I would encourage people that the process looks like getting connected with a real estate agent. You're going to get pre-qualified by a bank, mortgage broker, or lender, and they're going to kind of outline what you need to do to prepare yourself and try to keep your debt load servicing as low as humanly possible.
You got me thinking, because most newcomers, they come to Canada and they want, amongst other things, they want a better quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
So they tend to buy a car first, because it's so easy to finance a car. Oh, the payments are only $500, $800 a month. Okay, I can do that. But then how much harder is it for them to end up buying a home?
Significantly.
What would you recommend? What would be, let's say, a 3-year plan for someone who's thinking, okay, in 3 years, I want to be ready to buy my first home?
Got you. So I'll give you the 3-year plan as concise as possible. Number one, I'm going to look at the camera real quick. Number one, you're going to get connected with a real estate agent. That's going to be your point person to put you in contact with your next person, which is going to be a mortgage broker, okay, or a bank or some sort of lender. What you're going to do is you're going to have a consultation with that lender, bank, or mortgage broker, and they're going to outline saying, here's where you are, here's where we want to get to, here's what your financial stability, your debt load, and everything need to look like 2 or 3 years out from now. Then you're going to go back to your real estate agent, and the real estate agent and the mortgage broker are going to work together saying, this is our client, this is how we're going to help them get to this particular point. And now it's your job as the person, our client, and whomever it is, to go do those things. Maybe it's saving $20,000 a year. Maybe it's not getting that car, or getting the car lease payment under your parents and paying your parents behind the table so it's not technically on your debt service, which we've structured a lot of different things like that, right? And as long as you follow your way on the way up there, then about, I'd say 6 months out to before your timeline is, we check in again with the bank or mortgage broker to say, are we on track still given the situation of everything? If you are, we're going to get you pre-qualified at that time, and we're going to get a rate that's going to lock in to last 120 days. Then that's our window for 4 months. Now start shopping. We find a home, we buy a home, and then you move into it. So again, number one, you're going to connect with a real estate agent who's going to get you in contact with a mortgage broker, and then going to get you a plan in play. And then your real estate agent and you are going to stay connected with that plan. And when the time comes up, get you requalified, start shopping, buy your home. It's as simple as that.
As simple as that.
As simple as that.
You personally, being 27, how many homes do you own?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I own my home. I own 2 investment properties that are currently built. and then I have 4 pre-construction properties that are not yet built, right? We have one closing in February, and the other 3 I can't even think off the top of my head, but that's my whole investment portfolio.
Sweet. So you are of course, you're biased.
Sure.
Between renting, because there's a lot of people who actually explain why it does not make sense to buy a home.
I agree.
Yeah, you agree. Where do you draw the line?
Well,
when is it better to buy a home? When is it better to rent?
I do believe that buying a home, it is not an investment. It is a capital loss. So I'll give you an example. My home where I have my wife and my kids, that's a capital loss. Even if it's worth $3 million one day, how do I get the money out? I have to leverage it against myself. I have to pay interest, or I have to sell the property. My investment properties, however, properties that I don't live at, they're having equity appreciation. They're having cash flow come in and pay me monthly, and I can refinance the property, take the money tax-free, and then I can repurpose it. That is not a poor decision. However, I value the fact that I have my wife and kids in a great community where they're close to their friends and I'm close to my family, and I'm willing to pay for that. And I use my investment properties to help offset my capital losses. Okay, so I do believe that owning a home is a debt to some pedigree, but it's what's worth it to you, right? If you know, hey, I'm going to live here for 25 years and pay it off. Okay, if you're renting, that's okay, but where are you putting that other money? If you're going to come to me at the end of 25 years and still have nothing to show for it, what are you passing down to your kids? What do you have to show to your name? You don't really have anything, right? If you're taking some money and you're investing into a stock market, S&P 500, whatever it might be, and I don't know who your audience is, so that's why I threw the S&P 500 out there, but essentially, as long as you're having something that, like I said, at least meeting inflation, if not a little bit, at least you're at par holding some level of stability. But yeah, if you can get into the market, I would strongly encourage that you do. It's just a better sense of equity protection, and especially in Canada, your primary residence, in the event that you do sell it, it's tax-free. So if I did decide to sell my family home one day that is worth $3 million, I sell it, I get all the money tax-free, right? And if you look at the price I paid to acquire it and the monthly payments over the years, it's still, I end up ahead. Plus I got the peace of mind of saying, this is my home. My kids live here, my wife lives here, and this is my home, right? So that would be my take on that answer.
So what would you like to say to anybody who is either planning, dreaming of coming to Canada and living the Canadian dream, or somebody who is already living in Canada and is dreaming of having their own homes? I know it's difficult. We are very fortunate. We own our own places. We have investment properties, but we know we are a very small percentage of the population who can afford those things and talk about those things. But how can you help with tips, or even if it's just a motivational quote, anybody who has these dreams and knows it's hard, but you have been there, you have done that, how can they get there too?
Yeah, I would say, and that's a great question, I would say it really comes down to intention. If you want to do something, you're going to do it. If you think you want to do something, you're probably not going to do it. And if you're like, sounds like a good idea, you're definitely not going to do it, right? So if you really want to have home ownership and you really want the power of what it's like to own real estate, then like I said before, you got to connect with a quality realtor that you trust, that has a proven track record and can actually show you how to go from A to B to C all the way to Z and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and do that, right? So that would really what it come down to. It's coming down to the level of intention, saying I want to get it done. And I've sold hundreds of homes. We're probably going to be cracking the thousands number very shortly. And when it comes down to it, I really think about it. We've helped everybody. Newcomers to Canada doesn't even have their PR status. I've helped people who are separating and now their equity, not just their equity, but their credit scores are detrimentally damaged. I've helped people who are looking to move up in the market, downsize. I've literally helped every single real estate transaction I can imagine. And I can think of so many times when sitting with these people, the level of deflatedness that they had, thinking it's not going to work the way that we did. And I was able to show them, no, you just don't have the right tools. I have the right tools. And I think there's a lot of great realtors out there, including myself, who have that toolbox at their disposal that can help them. So I think if you're intentional about it and you get aligned with the right realtor who has the right toolbox to help you, you'll be able to make it happen. It's just a matter of patience and sticking to the plan.
Great. And adding another layer on top of that, what mistakes should they avoid if they are willing to listen to you? Yeah,
I would say mistakes for sure. If you're looking to get in the market, be mindful of your debt load. I've seen people go out and acquire nicer cars than I drive. And I'm like, how are you getting a $900 monthly car payment, $1,100 monthly car payment And it just blows my mind. I'm like, don't do that. So I would say the biggest one is be mindful in your car payments. The next one, I get it. People have consumer debt, right? Credit card debt, things such as that. Just be mindful, right? You have to have good credit to have the bank look at you and say, you're worthy of us having lend dollars towards you and you're a responsible consumer and spender. So I would say that's another big one. And then again, same thing with those with student debt. I would even go one step further. Before you go and put yourself in astronomical student debt, just really think about, once I have my degree and I have all this debt, is my new job going to be able to offset my debt and pay down and also allow me to live the lifestyle I want? And if it's not, maybe it's not the right degree to get into. And I think we can all agree, and I'm going to look in the camera again, so many people have gone out there and got their schooling degree and they walk away with just astronomical debt, and their degree is nothing more than a piece of paper because they're not actually using it, right? They're in a completely different industry. They end up in sales because they're like, oh my goodness, my current job pays me $40,000 a year. I'm in debt $120,000 a year and I have to pay rent. It's going to take me 10 years to get out of the cycle. Doesn't make sense, right? So I think that was another really big thing when I'm speaking to younger people. I'm really just encouraging them to think about the bigger picture, not just the micro, but the macro. So those would be my few tidbits for a few different people in different categories that I would encourage they think about. Yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
My personal experience. I came here to Canada 12 years ago with $1,500.
Yeah.
And only 2 years later, I was considering buying my first property. And of course, I didn't have much more than that in the bank.
Yeah.
But I had something. I had saved up. I was working every day, 7 days a week, most evenings as well, hustling. You know, circling back to what you said at the very beginning, hearing no didn't mean no.
Right.
Not always. I heard no from pretty much every bank I went to. And then when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to get the mortgage from this bank, they said no, 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 at least 5 times.
Right.
You know, and I said, you don't know me, you know, you're going to say yes. What do I have to do? Oh, well, first, in order to qualify, you're going to need to get this and this and this and this. Okay. And then I would come back 1 month later. Okay, got this and this. And now, still no. Okay, what would a yes look like? What would I need to do?
Right.
Okay, now you have to do this and this. Okay, see you in 2 weeks. And I came back with that and that. And then finally, I bought my first property. And man, I sold that 3.5 years later for 80% more. That's how everything began.
And so here's the thing. It's sweat equity. You put in your time, effort, energy, parked it in the right vehicle, and look how much it repaid you.
Yeah.
That's what I love about real estate. I think a lot of people, because they haven't tasted that or felt that, they are discouraged either to not get into it. And you were super intentional. You had a rubric saying you need to do this, this, and this, and this. You went back and did this, 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 and this, did the right thing, let time happen. And look at that. Look, and I'm sure, and I just met your beautiful family. Look what that's done for you guys. Like, that is tremendous.
And also, you know, I was working every day, and I didn't have a car. I bought my first car 2 years after I moved into that place. So I did not have any debt. And what I did with the living costs was I rented a condo, a 2-bedroom plus 1 den condo, and I rented out the other bedrooms to other tenants. So I was paying a little bit less than I would be paying if I just rented the room.
Yeah, it's super doing it the right way.
So the message here is, I hope, you know, people can resonate with this. You need to sacrifice. Everything comes with a price. It's, you know, if you want to buy a place that is $1 million, you have to make your time and your resources be worth $1 million. It's not going to come easily, right?
Well, again, everything that comes down to it at the end of the day, if you want something bad enough, you're going to be willing to do it. We were just at a conference and I heard the most ludicrous thing and I couldn't stop just thinking about it. And someone said, accountability and all those things are pretty much a silly thought, right? And what it comes down to is people are not motivated enough to make something happen. He said, hey, if someone was walking and you had kids and someone on the side of your street picked up and took your kid and ran, would you need accountability and all these things to go and get your kid? Of course not. You'd run, you'd do anything you can. People aren't like that though with, hey, I want to get into the housing market. They don't have that same tunnel focus. People aren't like that with starting a business. They let the distractions of all these other things come in. It slows them down. And then they come to a point where they get discouraged and they don't have the right people around them to dust them off, pick them back up and say, hey, it's okay, you fell, but get up. We got to get you, keep going. And that's what we take a lot of pride in and doing for a lot of our clients, of helping them along, because you are right. It's a very challenging thing to get into the housing market. But if you have the right team of people around you, it just becomes a process, and then you start relying on the process and the people, and it just becomes done. And then, to be honest, from a lot of our clients, when we bring them through that, they're our best source of repeat business, referrals, if you will, because they understand what we stand for, which is helping our people, and it all comes back full circle. And it's just how it works. It's exactly how it works.
That's how it works. How can anybody contact you if they're moving to Ontario?
Yeah.
And do you want anybody to contact you?
Yeah, listen, I love it. I love people. I'm in the people business, right? So if you guys want to contact me, you can definitely go and check me out on Instagram. I think it's probably one of the easiest things. David, D-A-V-I-D, Robbio, R-O-B-B-I-O. And I think it's probably the best way to connect with me. Send me over a DM. I would give out my number right here, but man.
We'll put everything in the...
Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully you guys can get all my information in the description below to make things so much easier. Can you imagine I sat here and I was like, here's my website, here's my email, here's all these things. Like, no, it's okay. Connect us on Instagram and all our information will be down below. And I would love to help anybody in any way that we can.
Great. Thank you so much.
Brother,
I really appreciate you making the time. I know you have a plane to catch.
Yeah, we got
about an hour.
Yeah, we got to jump on a plane very soon, but we wouldn't want to miss this, man. You're awesome and we appreciate it. And I love that you're trying to help Canadians realize that there is a Canadian dream. We have a beautiful country here. It is difficult to make things happen, but getting connected with the right people, it's definitely worthwhile. And I appreciate that you're doing everything you can to help all those out there.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to this episode. And if you're watching it on YouTube, remember to like it, to share it, and to subscribe to our channel to help other people like you to see this content and also to help many people achieve their Canadian dream. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode.
Cheers, guys.